An Air Force veteran, Paul Benedict, served as a computer programmer at the headquarters of Air Force Electronic Intelligence during the Vietnam War. And Paul is going to come forward with a few remarks for us.
Listen. Can you hear them? No, perhaps not from where you're sitting. But walk out among this field of flags and listen. Listen with your heart. You'll hear them. There are stories being told out there, the very personal stories of the veterans these flags honor. Stand out there silently and listen. Let your heart appreciate every word of every story. Besides the words and letters written home and in the commendations penned by their superiors, these stories contain far more personal words. Yes, words like duty, honor, and country, but also words like lonely, afraid, and exhausted. There's no shame in these words because they've earned the right to use them. They've paid the price, some with their lives, others with a lifetime ahead of disfigurement and pain and torment, and all with their willingness to serve in our armed forces. In the words of Marine Corps Lieutenant General John F. Kelly, they are the 1%. They shoulder the burden of fear and sacrifice, and they shoulder it for the rest of us. Those sons and daughters who serve are men and women of character who continue to believe in this country enough to put life and limb on the line without qualification and without thought of personal gain. And they serve so that the sons and daughters of the other 99% don't have to. They are paying in full the price of freedom for everyone else. Like those who went before them in uniform, we owe them everything. We owe them our safety, we owe them our prosperity, we owe them our freedom, we owe them our lives. Any one of them could have done something more self-serving with their lives, but no, they chose to serve. They did not avoid the basic and cherished responsibility of a citizen, the defense of country. They welcomed it. They are the very best this country produces, and they have put every one of us ahead of themselves. All are heroes for simply stepping forward, and we as a people owe a debt we can never fully pay. I recently read an essay written by Joe Carter, a senior editor at the Acton Institute and adjunct professor of journalism at Patrick Henry College. Joe served for 15 years in the U.S. Marine Corps, reaching the rank of gunnery sergeant. I was moved by Joe's words and contacted him, and he's given me permission to share them with you here. What a veteran knows. Thank you for your service, they say, as they shake our hands and pat our backs. We smile and thank them for their gratitude and try to think of something else to talk about. These encounters with strangers happen from time to time, though always on Veterans Day. It's the one time we can count on civilians, a group from which we came but to which we can never fully return, to think about us. On Veterans Day, they think of the men and women who march in the VFW parades. They think of their grandfathers, the gregarious World War II sailors, eager to share their sea stories, and their uncles, stolid Vietnam-era airmen, reticent to talk about the war. They think of the aunt who served in the Persian Gulf and the neighbor's son who was recently shipped off to Afghanistan. They think of us when they see us in airport terminals, young soldiers and Marines and sailors and airmen and coasties, giving our teary-eyed parents a welcome home embrace as we return from recruit training. They think of us when they see us on piers and airport tarmacs, older now, kissing our runny-nosed kids goodbye as we leave for missions of peacekeeping or war-making. They think of us as we are in the movies, marching off to war with stoic resolve and assaulting beachheads with quiet determination. They think of us aligned on parade grounds and ship decks, weapons and uniforms sparkling in the sun, postures the very picture of discipline. They think that military service is about combat and heroism and uncommon acts of valor. All of those are true. But there are things a veteran knows. We know that few of us ever saw battle, and that we're mostly ordinary people who performed common duties. We know that our service, whether 3 years or 30, was mainly composed of discrete units of banal and boring routine, and the drudgery of time spent cleaning rifles, equipment, barracks, and preparation for inspections and reviews and formations in which we'd spent hours standing ramrod straight while trying to hide buckling knees and sweat-drenched necks and the maddening urge to scratch skin that itched more and more the longer we stood still. We know that service is about our willingness to endure shin splints and blistered feet from too many miles of marching and running. We know it was about doing sit-ups on wet beaches on mornings that were much too cold and came much too early. We know it was about our ability to endure our own incessant whining as we made an avocation of complaining about being tired, wet, cold, and sore. And we knew about enduring the failings and weaknesses that were exposed when we discovered the limits of our endurance. We know that service requires loving our home so much that we willingly give up all that we cherished, our freedom, our youth, our life, so that others may be safe. We know that in serving our homeland, we gave up our ability to watch over our own homes. We know that it meant leaving our families for far-off lands and seas, and that no matter how many cards and letters and pictures and videos our families would send, it could never replace the time we missed being with our children, watching over them, and letting them know we were there to protect them. We know that Veterans Day is about the men and women we once served alongside, the voluble young Marine who was always eager to talk about her kids, and the Reverend old soldier who led prayer in chapel. We still think of them from time to time, though always on Veterans Day. And when we meet our fellow veterans, we always know exactly what we mean when we pat their back and take their hand and say, thank you for your service.
We have some presentations to make right now, and the first one will be introduced by Al Littman, who is the Mesquite City Councilman, and also he's the Veterans Day Parade Chairman, and he is going to introduce our Grand Marshal of the parade, and I am not certain that he's here, but we have a plaque for him. So, Al?
Okay. Unfortunately, our Grand Marshal is not here this evening, Mr. Chuck Thompson. I'll tell you a little bit about Chuck if you don't know him or have never met Chuck. Chuck is a very quiet gentleman who served during the Vietnam era as a tech sergeant in the Air Force and spent 20 years. Most of his time he spent it out of the United States. He was one of our original members of the Honor Guard in Mesquite and has been an extremely active citizen all through the years. 17 years ago, we started a Veterans Day parade in Mesquite by a local gentleman that's no longer with us. And 8 years ago, I took over the chairing of the parade, and we have had the hardest time over the years selecting an individual because within this community, there are so many fine veterans that it's almost, we throw a dart, and they're all great. This year it is Mr. Chuck Thompson. I'm sorry he's not with us, but I'm sure that when we get a hold of him, when he's available, he'll be more than happy to accept the award from the Exchange Club. Thank you.
And this is the plaque that we will see that Mr. Thompson receives this plaque, and it is from the Exchange Club. We do this every year to honor our Grand Marshal of our Veterans Day Parade. Thank you, Al. The next presentation will be made by Dennis Hange, who's the chairman of the Exchange Club's Proudly We Hail program, and he's going to present a plaque to this quarter's honorees.
Could I have David and Colette Price please come forward? As they're coming forward, 6 years ago, the National Exchange Club introduced a program called Proudly We Hail. And this is an award given only 4 times a year to those who fly their flag properly. It could be an individual, or it could be owners of a business or casino. And the Exchange Club of Mesquite this year has chosen David and Colette Price to receive this award. The award reads as follows. McDonald's 1, in recognition of the regular display of the flag of the United States of America. McDonald's 1 and McDonald's 2. So if you want to stop by and buy an extra hamburger, or they make great milkshakes, and they're non-fattening too. Thank you so much.